So what I'd like to do now is review our roadmap in terms of what we found from Cascade and kind of make sure we're on the same sheet of music here and pull it all together. So we started first with our low cash, the symptom of low cash, and how much did we end up essentially saying this was worth? What's leaking out of this?
76.
Low cash, $76,000. How about low gross margin? Low gross margin was the first one there that we looked at. It was 4% of $2 million, $80,000, and then we spread that across 4 different areas. We said no cash discounts was worth how much in profit? 10,000, that's right. Productivity, 30,000, and profit. Poor buying, 20,000, and poor pricing. 20. These are areas that we're going to say this is where he could put a plan together to recapture that 80 and at least get him up to the median, huh? Then we looked out of the low cash box. The symptom of low cash is caused by too much inventory, and we said it was 60,000 cash impact and too much receivables. 16,000. Then we said going the other way, high current liabilities, the misfinancing of debt, we want to take $126,000, that excess that got pulled out of working capital, put it down into long term. That won't change the amount of debt, but what does it change? The implication of the repayment in terms of a year, it gives him more working capital because this is now beyond a year. And then down in the interest area, we took that 76,000 of inventory and receivables, said there was a 10% cost on it, and we got 7,600. And what we need to do now, we've really got one more stop, actually. We started with his, if we just do a little bit of a review here, we started with his financial statements, his income statement, his balance sheet. Then we put together a ratio scorecard, right? So now we've got a report card. Then we took a roadmap and took a trip through that report card. What we need now is to pull the roadmap back together and get it in a form that is essentially a planning format. And that's what we've called a profit mastery assessment. And all we've done here is we've taken all of the items off of our roadmap and we've laid them out according to whether they have a primary cash impact or a primary profit impact. So there's the 60,000 of inventory, there's the 16,000 of receivables, the hidden cost of 19,000 and the interest of 7,600 on the inventory and receivables amount. The $80,000 of gross margin broken out by productivity, buying, pricing, and discounts, and the refinancing of $126,000. And when I total that all up as far as what's possible here, and remember, the target we've set is measuring them against whom? The median, not the top performers in any way. Cash impact of $202,000 and a profit impact of $108,600. Now, who's going to be responsible for the 60 and the 76? Him or the bank? The inventory management and the receivables management? He is. Who's going to be responsible for the 19, the 76, the 30, the 20, the 22, and the 10? He is. He's responsible for those. Which one can the bank help with? If he can convince them, he can take care of the rest of them. The 126. But this is a quid pro quo, isn't it? There's a trade-off here. They probably aren't going to want to do that unless they see some indication that he's going to do what he does. Now that we've got it laid out this way, we have a good basis to develop what? I mean, this is really the foundation of an action plan, isn't it? Now, if you think back from where we started, and you remember that I asked you to set those 2 financial statements side by side and take a look at what was there. And you wrote down 3 things that you saw. Each of you wrote down the first 3 things you saw. I think the message is, some of what you saw is here, isn't it? All of you. But not all of it. What we've tried to do is take all the pieces of the story and create the comprehensive story. Because unless he can pull this all together, if the right side falls down, it's not going to work, because he won't have any profits to pay back that long-term debt. If the left side falls down, he won't have any cash to have time to run the business to make the profits. This has all got to be an integrated plan. Now, my question for you is this. If you're my loan committee, can he do it? Now we've put ourselves in the banker's shoes because we've done the numbers, but now it goes beyond the numbers. Now it goes from here to where? Here. Can he do it? What's your call? I've got one no. Everybody else wants to be nice, right? We've got to be realistic. You see, we want him to succeed. Who's the only person who's going to determine whether this succeeds or not? He is. Here's the opportunity. For those of you out there, if you're a banker, an accountant, an SBDC counselor, in my view, you have the opportunity. It's not your business, but you have the opportunity to be what? A coach. You have the opportunity to be a coach. And in my opinion, you could do your clients no greater service than to get them tuned into Profit Mastery, because it's going to allow them to take positive, proactive control of their business and have a much better chance to succeed. My view is that if every business, and we also said earlier, I think we were in kind of an agreement that probably no more than 5–10% maybe of businesses out there do anything that resembles this, get this far. If we could get every business to do something like this, however we deliver the information from the accounting profession, this process is certainly something that could be added on to those financial statements. We work with accountants to accomplish that. From a bank perspective, this is a process that could be incorporated into the credit granting and analysis and checking process. From the standpoint of all of those other sources, the SBDC and everyone else who acts as an advisor to businesses, these are tools that can be communicated to the business community between us, between the advisor and the borrower. These are communication tools. And the language again was what? Numbers. There was quite a story here, and we never learned anything more about his business. We had to make a few speculative assumptions, which those assumptions would have, had we gone a little deeper, they would have been easy to validate within the structure of his company. We did it all with what mechanism? Numbers. We did it all with numbers. In other words, the numbers tell what? The numbers tell the story. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? We've got a couple more sections of this program to look at. What's our time frame here? We have financial statements. That means our time frame is what? The past. By the time we get financial statements, it's done. We're evaluating performance in the past and coming up with a plan that's going to change performance where? In the future. We can't change the past, but this plan can tell us where to look to change the future. But we need some tools to be able to do that. In section 3, we're going to look at break even, an incredibly powerful, simple, and much underused tool to manage the income statement. In section 4, we're going to look at putting together that thing that seems to be the bane of a lot of business owners' existence, a cash flow projection. And in section 5, we're going to use a tool that hardly gets used at all and is probably the most valuable tool to come out of the financial community, I don't know, in the last 2 decades, called Financial GAAP, and it'll be managing the balance sheet. So we're going to manage the income statement in section 3, the checkbook in section 4, and the balance sheet in section 5. This really is a reflection of what I believe is the awesome power of Profit Mastery, to get people to really look inside their own numbers and give them a tool to evaluate and change their performance. But we know that most businesses don't do this. So let's finish up this section and talk about what are the reasons. What do you suppose are the reasons that bankers get, that accountants get, that SBDC counselors get from their clients for that not doing this? What are the reasons? In fact, let's just X out the word reasons and look at the reality. What are the excuses? So what are they? Number one, and these are all excuses that I've heard. I don't do this because I don't have time. This was told to me by someone I had loaned slightly over $5 million. I don't have time to do this even once a year. And what am I thinking? I don't have time to loan it to you, give it back. And then I discovered an awesomely bad thing. You give someone money and they will do what? Spend it. It's too late. You got all the time there is. Profit mastery is a process that will save you time, that will focus your energy. It won't cost you time. It requires an investment on the front end, but you're making that right now. Number two, I don't do this because I don't know how. Baloney. Anybody who's smart enough to run a business can do this. We haven't done anything that's rocket science, have we? We started with a set. The only thing we need is a set of financial statements that's what? Timely and accurate. But sadly, a whole lot of us don't even invest in a process to produce good data. Without good data, where are we? We're lost. So we've got all the time there is, and we do know how, because each of you, when you wrote down those first three things, you learned a lot of this OJT, didn't you? On-the-job training. All Profit Mastery is set up to do, hopefully, is to pull all the knowledge that's in your head into a decision-relevant framework. That's really what we've tried to do here. A decision-relevant framework so that 1 + 1 = 3. We're trying to leverage the knowledge you already have. If this was important, my accountant would do it. That's another excuse I've heard. Is that true? I don't know. What I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of business owners over the last 3 decades, I don't get this information from my accountant. I have a suggestion. If you don't get it, do what? And you want it. Ask. It's a highly technical concept. Ask. And of course, be willing to pay. I believe that accountants would love to do this. In fact, those that I've talked to who have made an attempt, what response do they get? Well, I don't have time, I don't want to pay. They get the same excuses. A more pragmatic reason that I got. I don't do this, Steve, because it's not fun. It's a lot like work. Now, what my attempt, as I said earlier, is to convince you that finance is in fact fun. It's like unwrapping a mystery. The lady that used to be on TV, Murder, She Wrote, what's her name? Angela Lansbury. What was her character's name? Jessica Fletcher. She's trying to figure out who done it. Remember that? Everybody's seen that show, either originally or in reruns. She's trying to figure out who done it. In your business, we know who done it. What we're trying to figure out is what you done. And then the classic. I don't do this because I am more of a crisis manager. So what am I thinking? Well, that's a darn good thing because you got one. You're in deep trouble. When's the best time to apply this process to a business? Always, but it would be great if we shouldn't have to wait till we're in the tank to try to fix it. Let's do it when? When we're in good shape, and keep it in good shape, huh? This is something that can be done all the time, but most business owners, because it's not our area of expertise, we put it off until later. Those who are advising us, they could be our coaches. We could ask for help. There's a way to do this. And as I said earlier, if you were my customer, it would be simple. I'd do what? I'd make you do it. I'd make you do it. And I guess my thought here is, in kind of closing this section, in the 70s, 60s and 70s down in the Central Oregon, at the University of Oregon at Eugene, they had a world-class track team. And there was and if you're really good, especially at the distances, 800 meters and up, and if you're really good at track, what's your equipment? Shoes. And there was somebody on that track team. They set lots of world records. The movie Prefontaine is about that era. They set lots of records. And there was a guy on that track team who was the worst runner on the track team. Now, if you happen to be the worst runner on a world-class track team, you're still a pretty good runner, right? Now, they noodled around with the shoes, didn't they? The waffle sole things, and they used the waffle iron and figured out a little bit way to gain just a little advantage. And of course, we know in sports these days, oftentimes championships are decided by what? 0.01, maybe even 3 decimals here. The fact is, when they left, they did so well that when they graduated, they hung around Eugene and started a company. What's the company? Nike. And the chairman of Nike? Phil Knight. He was the worst runner on that team. He's had to live all these years knowing that. At a net worth of probably 8 or 9 billion. He's okay with it now. But if he were here, what would he say about this process? The motto of Nike? Just do it. And if you would just do this, just apply it in your business, start to use the tools. You have the ability to review at any time. Use the tools. I guarantee you will learn something. I just can't guarantee whether what you learn will be good or bad. But what I do know is knowing is better than what? Not knowing. Not knowing is like sticking your head in the sand and hoping it goes away. Can you see that this particular management position leaves a significant portion of your anatomy exposed? And in fact, if there's indeed less room out there in the economy and the marketplace for errors, we don't want to be there, especially when the tools here are so available. They're available, so use them. Just do it.